Okay, so welcome everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I'd like just to introduce our research group and how the whole thing started. So the story of this research began sometime after me and my friend and research colleague Sarah attended the first training program held in Alexandria a few months ago. And we became kind of inspired and swayed by its innovative influence. And these are some pictures like capturing some of the joyful moments we attended. Naturally, we just could not resist but jumping on the opportunity of investigating in depth and breadth the real life impact of FIRST in a traditional and long-standing institution such as Al-Azhar, which is the context of our research, as we will explain in a moment. Now, why this project in particular? As you will see here, these are some pictures of Al-Azhar institution, like centuries ago. And this is how it is these days. So we were essentially passionate about this research project because, as the pictures suggest, the present status quo is so very different from the past. And it is safe to say that the university currently ascribes itself to the factory-based model of education. And though it used to pride itself in the past on a more progressive model of education where more progressive and learner-centered pedagogies were used. So more about the research setting. The research is about Al-Azhar lecture program, a training program that is held in Al-Fiqh on a yearly basis by Dr. Yasser. And we were fortunate to document the inspiring experience of Dr. Yasser, whom we met through the SeGa Research Cloud. And after attending FIRST, it was noteworthy that he was very interested and extremely excited to bring about some real changes into the university program he teaches every single year. And our methods, as shown here, depend on interviewing, video observation, and surveys with the aim of investigating what kind of influence is really happening, if any. Now, this is a near or quasi real life picture of the videos. It's not the real thing because of ethical consideration, but this is a public source image presented on the websites of Al-Azhar University, and it just shows how the lecture rooms are really crowded and how the factory-based model of education is still in function. So there is power in not having power. This is one of the main findings we have reached. It is noteworthy to review how the participants in our research verbalized their opinions in the remotely conducted survey we asked them to fill. So in one telling example, one of the students described the professor as saying, for example, he's very humble, and I do not feel that there is a huge knowledge discrepancy between us. As we can see in the slide, for example, respect, follow-up, affection represent what students conceptualized as best practices. And generally, the survey responses, our video observations somehow correlated together to validate how rapidly the students were able to emotionally and intellectually interact with the newly introduced changes and adopt a more participatory attitude by time. So interestingly, one student said it all when he just proclaimed in a few words. He said, the student in this lecture is treated as if he was a human being. So just the few words or the few conjunctions as if speak volume. This is the core of what we could say a humanizing pedagogy. So what is a humanizing pedagogy? It's treating students as human beings. As simple as this is not the case in many educational institutions. So when asked about what were the main advantages that characterized this program in particular, for example, around 3 students focused on al-hawar and al-munaqasha, which are Arabic words for dialogue and discussion, while others, for example, focused on the good, kind spirit of the lecturer. Now, this led us to just speculate on the 3 R's. In the most challenging learning environment, maybe we need something new. We need critical reading, we need respect, we need reciprocal dialogue, and more importantly, we need to change the very famous 3 R's that focus on just literacy and academic knowledge. So similar moments along the journey led us to conclude some findings. First, even in the most challenging learning environments, the smallest of smallest dynamic and hard-based changes can create ripples of change. And secondly, the strength of FIRST as a training program lies in its ability to instigate a paradigm shift in how the teachers reconceptualize their role as facilitators or as teachers, and how they re-envision the image of the student as a human being. Another main finding that the program is highly relevant to educators who believe in empowering theoretical frameworks, like critical pedagogy, for example, but who still grapple with how these theories can actually be transformed into real practices in the classroom. So on this note, I end with this quote about how we need a new paradigm in education, and I leave the platform for my colleague and friend Sarah to tell us more of what we found.
Thank you, Zina, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be with SeGa and among SeGa, an honor actually. I'll now move on to share with you more of the data we got from the students sharing their experience. But before that, I'd really like to thank Dr. Yasser for his support, enabling us to connect with his students in Azhar University and get their feedback, and for the openness all along this process. We appreciate it a lot. This data analysis phase is still a work in progress, but this is a snapshot of what we found interesting so far. When asking the students about their experience, how they felt, what was most remarkable to them, one interesting quote we've got, which is the one shown on the screen: professors treat us special needs students as if we do not matter. No one pays attention to us. This is not the case with Dr. Yasser. I now feel I'm a normal human being and I'm treated very well. The best thing I appreciated was that now I participate in class. This quote struck me, and it made me stop, particularly looking at the part I now feel I'm a normal human being, which in itself really says a lot. So this special needs student, just feeling attended to his needs, feeling the individualization, the F domain in FIRST. So thinking of that in terms of humanizing education should really be a drive towards revising our current education's priorities. Another theme I'd like to move on is the theme of the nature of the relationship between the professor and his students. An interesting quote we found, which is in blue on the screen, the word love. We found it repeated several times. I feel serenity and love. I developed a sense of love and respect to Dr. Yasser. We loved the professor and the subject, so we loved studying. Love and mutual respect with the students, because if the student loved his professor, he will be keen to attend and focus in the lecture. And thinking of this in terms of the I domain in FIRST, the interaction, the positive spirit, the affection, how this really how this really touched the students a lot. Another keyword we found interesting, if you can just change the slide, Dina, please, was the word advice. It showed up numerous times as well. And the interesting thing is how this was seen in light of the relationship of between the students and Dr. Yasser. Like looking at this last quote that says the classes had advice from a father to his children. So this really was one of the interesting findings we had in terms of the relationship with the professor. We've also wanted to share more, and my colleague Basma will continue further with a bit more of the findings. Basma.
Sorry, it's muted, Basma.
Oh, Basma, it's mute, yes, dear.
سامعني كده؟
Yes.
Okay. Yes, تمام.
So thank you, Sarah, and thank you, everyone. I'm going to talk about the pedagogist that Dr. Yasser have been using during his lectures. Actually, he depended on the interactive activities that engage the students and put them into action. If you watch the videos, you will enjoy that scene of the students enjoying the learning process, excited and exploring a new way that most of them have never tried before in an institution like Al-Azhar. They also got the chance to experience that transformation part of learning, from just being a student who sits and gain to a student who shares and does, as one of the students said to us in the surveys. The most beautiful thing is the feeling of transformation from a machine that only memorizes to a human being who understands what he studies. And this is great, actually. Also, the team spirit, the group work, new concepts that they allowed to experience is another student's reflection when he said, I feel the team spirit and the group work that we miss in education at Al-Azhar. And of course, the positivity that comes naturally when you're doing something that you enjoy, as in the case here. One of the students said about the most remarkable or the positive spirit of the professor, the various activities made us love learning, using mind maps and continuous revision. So it's clear how they felt the difference of using different methodologies. In fact, it was and still an enjoyable journey. And despite the positive moments, we've witnessed this journey still has many more milestones to cover. And the journey with first shall always continue to evolve. That was the presentation for now, and thank you. And we're open for your questions.